Okay, hello everyone. My name is Mariana and I'm an educator at the Natural History Museum of Utah. And I want to welcome you to our question and answer session of the Research Quest Live. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, if you want to leave a question for our special guest today, you can press the Ask a Question button or leave a comment on Facebook, and we are going to answer all of your questions. Today, we'll talk with Allison Wickens. She is the collection's digitization coordinator at the Natural History Museum of Utah. Hello, Allison. Thank you so much for participating. And how are you today?
I'm doing well, Mariana. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So we just had like a difficult word for me to say, digitization and all of that. And I just wanted to start with you explaining a little bit of your work. Like, what do you do?
Yeah, so I also struggle with that word.
Good to know.
It's a hard one. But so what my job is I work with, alongside the collection staff behind the scenes in the museum to help scan, photograph, and share all the different things that we have stored there. So anything from dinosaurs to insects to leeches to photographs and all of that. So it's lots of fun.
That's awesome. So you make that available for everybody who wants to see it, from them.
Yeah, so one really awesome thing about science right now is that there's this huge community of people all over the world who collaborate and share together and make all of this information and photos public and shareable to primarily to scientists, but also anybody can go and use them and look things up. Personally, I like going into some of the places where we share things and to look up dinosaurs or plants and see what people are looking at.
And that's really, really, really cool. And since we talked a little bit about this digitization part, can you explain a little bit of how that works, how this process works of if you're going to do a fossil, what would be the process?
So the first step when we're digitizing something like a fossil is we'll go and we'll talk with the collections manager and see what she wants us to work on first. And then we go and we look at the fossil, see how we can handle it to make sure it doesn't break, see how big it is, because some of those fossils are very large.
Yes.
And so if it's something very big, it's an entirely different way. We put the cameras and we put the lights. But if it's something small, we set it on the stand. We get a scale bar, so measurements, and then we set it up to photograph it, and we photograph all sides of a fossil, and then we store it because we keep copies of these images forever, just in case some scientist listening to this now is like, I want to go learn more about the Utah raptor. And then we combine all of the information that we've taken both from things that have been written down, things that have been done before, and then we upload it and get ready to share it with everybody.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah. So I have a question here from Los Angeles. Ada is asking, what are some things that I can do to learn about dinosaurs, using your digitalization process? And how can I get involved with paleontologist science communication? That's awesome.
Those are solid questions. Those are great questions.
Yeah, so, thank you.
Really fun way to learn about dinosaurs is, like I was talking about earlier, is all the museums of the world are sharing their information online. And so if you go to any museum's website, or I can share the different online places where you can look for museum things, you can go and look up dinosaurs and look at pictures and read what people are writing and sharing about them. And working with being a science communicator, specifically with paleontology, one good way is to go volunteer at your local museum or fossil site. That's where a lot of the really great science communicators got started. And another really fun way to practice and learn more about being a science communicator is looking up and watching what some of your favorite science communicators do. Watching Research Quest is one good way. my favorite science communicator is with the Field Museum, Emily Grassley. And so you can learn a lot by looking at what people you like are doing and then practicing it.
Yeah, that's so cool. Thank you. I have a question from Salt Lake City. Nick is asking, what's your favorite dinosaur you have digitized?
That's a tough one. I think they're all cool. We recently started figuring out how we can take photos of the really, really big dinosaurs. And I've got some pictures I can show you guys later if you would like to look at some of them.
For sure.
So we recently tried figuring out how to photograph Cosmoceratops, which is really cool. I think they've shared some pictures of it on the museum's blog or in scientific articles that they've written about it. So that was lots of fun.
Wow, that's really cool. And that's big.
It's big. We had to get on a very tall ladder to try it.
Wow. Oh, I remember you have like some pictures of like this ladder process. Do you want to share with us now? Or yeah.
I can show some of those with you now. I think I've got them up right now.
Thank you.
No problem. It's more fun seeing them. So this is some of us trying to photograph some large things. So this is a dinosaur trackway. And you can see my students in the background are at different positions getting the light, because if you just get it straight on, you can't see them.
No.
Yeah, so it takes some figuring out. So if you see those little marks on the surface, those are what we're trying to photograph.
Wow.
So
that seems a lot of work, a lot of setting up.
So it takes a lot of work in setting up, but once we photographed these things, anybody can look at them, and that's the best part. And you can ask new questions about how these things lived and what things we can and cannot see.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And was this the same ladder you used for this like last Ceratopian one you were taking pictures, or?
This was part of our efforts in trying to photograph Cosmoceratops, which I don't have pictures of here.
Okay.
Because I'm on the ladder photographing these things up there.
Yeah, that's hard.
Our lovely collections manager was the one photographing us photographing things.
That's so cool. Awesome.
Yeah, so that was a fun experience, and we're going to start really working on that again soon. But we've started photographing a lot of our different fossil collections.
That's so cool. Yeah, we have here like sharing some pictures. Oh, that's so cool.
So we've got the one they've used in scientific study in the collections. And so if you can imagine, I'm about 5'4", and this thing is almost as big or bigger than I am.
Wow. Yeah, that's big.
Because it's so complex and you've got all the different frills and horns sticking out, you've got to be careful about how you light it and how you can photograph it and what's most important for scientists to see.
And how many people do you need? Like, I saw that you had like some students taking care of the light. So it's you taking pictures and they taking care of the light. How many people do you need to do like all this process?
Depending on the size and how complex it is, anywhere from 3 to 4 people. You don't see our collections manager in the photo who had to forklift all the things down and position them. And
yeah, I know that takes some effort. That's so cool.
It takes a lot of planning. A good plan is part of any photography process. And we do projects like these all across the museum.
That's so awesome. Thank you. And before we continue, we have some questions now, but before we continue, I just want to remind everybody who's watching to, if you want to leave a question, just press the Ask a Question button or leave a comment on Facebook. So now we have a question. Tracy from Utah is asking, do you only scan like dinosaurs or other things as well? I know that you do because you mentioned that. And what's the most unusual thing you have digitized?
Ooh, that's a tough question. So most recently, we scan and digitize anything from our leech collection, from our insect collection, our collection of archaeological artifacts, ethnographic artifacts, so things people have collected looking at past peoples of Utah. We do dinosaurs, we do minerals, but we also do a lot of journals from students. So if you're an undergraduate student at the University of Utah, and you take a biology class, you may end up in the museum someday.
Yay.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. But we also like photographs of people as they go collect these things and their thoughts and their research and what they do, so we can help keep all of this information and this science safe so people can come back and research things in the future.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. And do you like have you ever done like anything like that you thought was like kind of like unusual or?
Oh yes, all the time.
All the
Most
time.
recently, we started a project figuring out how to photograph our collection of leeches in alcohol.
Ooh.
So I think Christy Bills may talk about this next time you have her on. So we have a huge collection of leeches stored in little glass jars of alcohol. And I think they're kind of cute, but everybody has their own opinions. And so what we ended up doing is after a lot of research, we figured out a way we can flatbed scan leeches.
Wow.
And so if you like, I've got some pictures I can show you if you'd like.
Yeah, for sure. That would be awesome.
It's hard to explain without showing.
Yeah.
Okay, this is one of my students' flatbed scanning things. So we use a flatbed scanner, a lot like this. She's
Wow.
doing photographs there. A lot like this to scan pictures like this. So this is our very first test image for our leech collection. And you can see right there the leeches. But because we flatbed scanned it, we can zoom in.
Look at that. Wow.
It's a very close-up image of a leech. And you can see there's a scale down there. So this thing is about a centimeter.
Oh, it's so small.
So small. And these dots are actually, after speaking with the researcher, are important when you're trying to figure out more about this kind of leech.
That's so interesting. So cool.
Lots of fun things we have to think about when challenges when photographing strange and unusual things like this.
Yeah. And we would like to know if you can, if you can explain a little bit about the flatbed scanner, what it would be then.
So let me bring back the picture of the flatbed scanner.
Okay.
So the flatbed scanner basically means, you see these a lot in offices too, is there's a light in a sort of like a camera inside this glass bed here. And so what it does, you see she's got a photo there, she places the picture side down and the light will run across the surface of the photo along with the camera. So it creates an image on the screen. The challenging part with the leeches, which was on a different flatbed scanner, is that there were lights on both sides, which is why you get a lot of blue and wavy images.
That's so hard. And it's so small.
It's so small. And some of the leeches get pretty big, which is fun. But running it through a flatbed scanner means we can do 12 leeches at once rather than one at a time.
Awesome. And do you know how many you did like in total or?
We just started, so I think we did 1 or 2, but there are, I think, several hundred leeches in our collection.
Wow.
So we've got quite a lot.
That's a lot. And connected to that, I have a question from Allison. She's from Park City, and she was really participating in our class earlier as well. And she's asking, what's your favorite insect? Like maybe that you have digitized.
Ooh, that's a challenging one.
Yeah.
We recently started photographing. I was working with our technician to photograph the beetles, coleoptera, like scarab beetles, because we were trying to figure out one of the challenges with some insects and shells and minerals is that they're very shiny and translucent. And so if you're trying to push light through that, it makes it hard to see. And so we were trying to photograph all these very shiny, like emerald colored beetles, and it was a fun challenge, and they're just fun to look at.
Yeah, I can imagine that the pictures, they're awesome. So I have a question. Paul from Texas is asking, what is what was the most difficult thing that you have scanned, and how long did it take?
So one of the hardest things is I recently have started testing 3D scanning small mammal skulls from our teaching collections.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah. And so the problem with small mammal skulls is that, one, they're very, very tiny. So we're talking about maybe 5 or so centimeters. And because parts of the skull are so thin, the laser we use to 3D scan them just passes through it.
Ah. And how are we going to do it?
We're still trying to figure out some of it. But there's different ways we can 3D scan things, like going to different places on the university campus where they've got what's called CT scanners, which are like an enclosed space that get more in-depth laser scans of the skulls. It's really quite cool. They do it a lot for paleontology, which is fun.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. And do you know, like, if does it take more time, like, to do it when it's like a really hard project, or like, or is like the size of the thing that makes it like take longer to do the scan?
Sometimes it's how many different parts it has. So the skull, because it was small and it had a lot of very small teeth, and teeth are super important when you're studying mammals.
Yes.
And because we run at such a high quality of image, like several 100,000 points per like square centimeter kind of image, it can take anywhere from maybe like 2 hours for a skull that's the size of, I don't know, size of like a eraser, a large eraser. Yeah, and so it depends. The large things can also be challenging because you've got to get so much in it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that sounds like a lot of work. I'm like, wow, that's so
Lots
cool.
of fun, though.
Yeah, I know. I can imagine. That's a lot of fun. And Allison, again, she has another question. She wanted to know what else you study.
What else I studied, or what else that I've been working on?
Yeah, what else you've been working on? But I think it would be interesting if you can share what did you study to do like this type of work. Like, I think that would be interesting to know about, like, what else you're like working on, and what did you study?
So I got my final degree in museums. You can actually get a degree in museum studies. So that was lots of fun, where I worked a lot with fossil plants, and I worked a lot with archaeology collections to help get some of the cool things that don't get a chance to go out in the museum, out in the public. I also got trained in archaeology and paleontology, so lots of different things that come together. And in the case of different things that we've worked on, I've got some pictures if you'd like to see some.
Yeah, sure, that would be cool.
That's the benefit of my job. We take a lot of pictures.
Yeah, and we love seeing pictures.
I love pictures too. All right, so here's a picture we started taking of the mineral collections. So this is rose quartz on muscovite.
So pretty.
And because of the way and the lighting we take the pictures, you can see the different cuts of the different minerals on each other. So that's lots of the fun challenge.
That's so awesome.
We'd also take pictures of lichens and plants and algae.
Look at that. So cool.
And then here's some more of our insect collections that our lovely insect technician has done. Sorry, I opened this up in a tab earlier.
Oh, it's okay. Don't worry. It looks so cool.
Yeah, and the benefit of the way we take pictures is, one, we've got our scale, and we've got all the information you need as a scientist to learn more about it. And you can zoom in on these things. So see like the hairs on an insect leg.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That seems so awesome that you have like access to all the things, like all the collections, all the things from the museum. So that's so awesome. That's so amazing. And before I continue, I just want to remind everybody who's watching that if you want to leave a question for Allison, just click the Ask a Question button or leave a comment on Facebook. Oh, Emmy from Oregon is asking, what's the website we go to look at the images, like these images and you were showing?
Awesome. So for our collections, which I think are the coolest, but
yes,
there's here I can show you. I have ours up on my computer screen.
Yay.
So for ours, you can go to the Search Our Collections tab on the Natural History Museum website, which can be found under Collections and Research. And any one of these tabs can take you to more information about any of the collections we have available. I'm still working on paleontology and minerals, but we should have those ready hopefully soon.
That's so cool.
Yeah, a lot of these are really fun to look at and learn. But other websites you can go to, for one example, there's SCAN, which is where the museums of the world sort of share their information on insects. And there's other places like iDigBio and GBIF, which I can share with Mariana, and she can share with you guys later if you're interested.
Yeah.
Where you can look at all museums over the world and how they share things and how people research things. And this is one way that scientists can find what we have and then come visit the museum.
Yes, that's so good for the science work.
And it's kind of fun for us because we can go in and look at things.
Yes, that's awesome. I have a question. Oliver from Washington is asking, today we observed using 3D models and we got all sorts of info from our observations. I think he's talking about our class today, or a Cleveland Light investigation, that we have like some 3D models that like students can analyze and use to make their observations. And is asking, do you think in the future 3D models will replace touching fossils?
I think there's nothing quite different than actually working with fossils, because a lot of the times we'll get closer and closer as technology gets better and better for 3D scanning. But there's some things that you can see better in person than you can see in a 3D scan. 3D scanning makes it easier to share and to educate so that we can do cool things like Research Quest, or there are different online communities where scientists share 3D data. There's one called Morphosource, which is fun to look at different ways scientists research using 3D models. But there's nothing quite the same as coming in and measuring a fossil yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's a good tool, right, to have, like a good resource to have. But like, yeah, I think it's probably not going to replace it. It's going to make the life of paleontologists and scientists easier, probably, and like, yeah, and help them a lot.
Yeah, so we can get requests from like Brazil or Japan or India. And in some cases, it helps us keep the fossils around for longer because less people are handling them.
Yeah, yeah, definitely preserve them. Yeah, that's really cool. I got a really cool question here. Ryan from Utah is asking if there are different procedures in digitizing different things from the museum, because you go like all the collections and you see all of them. So like, is it different from like digitizing like a fossil, an artifact, or like an insect or a plant? Like are there different like procedures?
Yeah, there are procedures depending on which collections group you're working with. So the picture of the lichens and the insects I shared you earlier, those are actually 70 different pictures stacked or merged into a single image. So there are different considerations for handling insects and then how many photos we take to gain different quality. In anthropology, it's a lot like what I showed you in the minerals photo, where we have different arrowheads, different pottery sherds and things like that we have to handle carefully because there's still food remnants on the insides of some pots and things like that. So you have to take different precautions to get the best quality image you can to share, but also to make sure that no damage happens to the thing you're trying to image.
Yeah, for sure. That's a lot of things to, there are a lot of things to think in the process. I got a question. Oh, Sarah in Virginia is asking, would you scan a dinosaur bone one at a time or do the whole skeleton at once?
It depends on how it's preserved.
Mm.
So here, do you mind if I share my screen with you to show you the photos again?
Oh, of course, anytime you want.
All right, let's see if I can find the one I'm thinking of. Here, so this photo right here
Mm-hmm.
of that dinosaur, that's actually an entire skeleton in a jacket. In that case, we'd have no choice but to photograph it or to 3D scan it in the jacket as a complete skeleton. And that's the case with some of the things you see mounted in the museum. Is it's all together as one unit, and that's the way it makes sense. But in some cases, depending on how the paleontologists have found it, it's easier to scan it as separate pieces, and then somebody can go back and reconstruct it later.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of editing we do with 3D scans to make something whole that's been changed due to the nature that the fossil has been found in.
Depending a lot, yeah, for sure. So cool. So Laura from Boston is asking, what is a jacket? And I think that was something you mentioned.
No, it's a great question, and you'll have to ask one of your fossil guests later too. So you see the white covering right there?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what paleontologists call a jacket. So when they find something in the field, they usually cover it with like plaster or different combinations of material, so they keep it together with the sediment that they find it. And then usually they take it back to the museum, where in fossil prep labs, they can start digging out through some of the material so that they don't damage the bones within it. And so that's what's commonly called a jacket. It makes it easier to transport and keep things together.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So I have a question here from Colorado. Erin is asking, if I wanted to show a scanned image on my website, would I need to ask the museum's permission to use it? I think it's probably she's probably asking from the questions you're showing that are from the museum.
Yeah, so great question, actually. So yes, we would like you to at least ask the collections manager, because there's different kinds of information that people are looking for when they're looking at an image, especially if you're a scientist trying to look at something. So one example is, what do we call it? Every individual thing that you've seen in the pictures I've shown you today, that's in the museum out on exhibit and behind the scenes in collections, all has been assigned a single number that relates specifically to that object. And the big goal of science is that you have to be able to repeat the research that's been done on it. So when you share a picture and you share the number and the name of the thing and say, hey, we found it here at the Natural History Museum of Utah, that lets others know where to go back, where to repeat the science or find it before.
It's important, yeah, for sure. And I think I have a final question. It's like an interesting question, really specific. Oliver from Washington is asking, do you think there will be a time we can use haptic feedback to touch and manipulate 3D models? And I think he's talking about like some things that he saw maybe in movies, people like in the future using it to manipulate and touch it.
Yeah, so that's something that the museum community as a whole is really looking hard into trying to figure out, is how can we get 3D models out there and get it so that you can manipulate it to look at the different structures of minerals, or you can flip something over to look at it both in the museum and in your web browser. And there's a lot of considerations that go into how can we do this without causing computer problems for the museum.
Oh yeah.
Because a lot of these really high quality images are really, really big image files.
Mm-hmm. You're heavy.
We have to figure out how can we share this, and it's something we're working on, Oliver. And you should check back on our website as we try to figure these things out.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe in the future we just do that. Okay, so unfortunately we're out of time now. So I would like to continue asking, because I was loving to see your pictures in your answers, but we had to finish. So I want to thank you so much for participating, Allison. That was really, really cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And for everybody who's watching, thank you so much for watching and sending your questions. Tomorrow we're going to continue our Cleveland Lloyd investigation with Aiden at 9:30 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. And thank you so much, and see you all. Bye.